Hey there, Will Patillo here, and today I'd like to demonstrate for you a character controller template I've been working on lately. One thing I'd like to mention right off the bat is that this is an open source project, so all of the code and resources are available for you to use or modify absolutely free on GitHub, and there is a link in the description below if you'd like to check that out. The animation and model is all based off of the Unity's third-person character controller in the standard assets. The code is my own, at least for this scene. There is another scene where I have a collaborator who contributed some things, and I'll speak more to that later. But to start out, right now I have my character who can stand, turn in place with different animations for each, walk forward to the left and to the right. It can switch to running, in which case he moves faster and has different animations for moving forward, left, and right. It can toggle that off. It can also crouch, which moves very slowly. And then I also added a bit of strafing, left, right. I don't actually have animations for that set up yet, however. And then there's also jump right there. And then back over here, there is an AI character who, once I get close to him, you'll run and follow me, and then switch to walking when close. And if I get far away, it'll go back to running. Now, one thing you might be wondering right now is that pretty much all this functionality exists in the standard assets character controller. So why did I go to all the trouble of making this? Standard assets controller, if you've ever worked with it, is great for prototyping, but once you try to add in features beyond what's just included in it by default, more than just tweaking some settings, it becomes very difficult to extend because it's not written in a way that's particularly modular. And so I wanted a character controller that I could actually use as a basis for real game projects, so that I'm not writing the same code over and over, but has all the flexibility that I need because each project can be very different. So to give you a little sense of the complexity before I start showing how the architecture works, I'm going to stop this scene and look at a couple of the other scenes which share much of the same code. So right here I have a first-person flying camera where I can use click and drag the mouse to look around. I can also move left or right with the keyboard, and forward and back as well. And then I can also speed up and slow down the rate at which I move by using the mouse wheel. This actually prefab right here and the scripts attached to it are extremely useful just by themselves. And so I highly recommend checking out the repo just for this prefab and the stuff with it, because having a flying camera like this is really nice as a debugging tool to just have in your games, even if this isn't the mechanic, just so you can fly around the scene while the game is in play mode, kind of like the way you can in the scene editor. Alright, so that's it for that scene. And then there's also this scene over here. And at first this looks fairly simple. It's just a non-animated character that can move up, down, left, and right. No turning involved in it or jumping either. However, what makes this a little unique is that it does not use a rigid body. There's no connection to Unity's physics system. It's all simulated collisions that it uses to be able to go up these ramps. So if your game requires a really high level of control that you just can't get easily with all the stuff that comes with a rigid body, then this would be an interesting thing to check out. And I'm really curious to see if this gets developed further. Get a sense of how modular the design is. For the keyboard input in all three scenes, they all use this script right here called keyboard input, where I set the bindings, just however many I need. For each binding, you can enter in what key codes are being used, and whether they're active continuously on press down, or press up, or maybe some combination of those. And then when that key binding is active, what events get called. And you can have multiple if you like, through the power of Unity events. Next, for the AI, is basically the same as the player, using many of the same components. except that instead of having keyboard input, it has some follow logic, which essentially like simulates keyboard input. And in this particular AI is always moves forward when it's in range of a target, and I can set what the thresholds are, and it turns to face the target. If I wanted a different kind of AI, let's say it was like just like a capsule or something symmetrical, and it just changed directions rather than turning to face its target, then you could just remove these components and give it a different type of following, and use Unity events to just communicate with the input movement, and that could work. You wouldn't have to totally change the structure of everything else. You just modify the different components. Next thing, for the animation, I have an animation interface with my crossfading in there. And actually, if I look at the animator, it is just this. There's no mucking about with blend trees or animation states or transitions and all that stuff, which, you know, looks like a really useful tool that Mechanim provides, but has the pain point that it's pretty difficult to coordinate game logic with things that happen in the states, and also all the transitions can become just a nightmare of cobwebs that are just impossible to untangle. Here it is all entirely code controlled as to which animation state you're in. That also allows for things like here in this jump system to call events partway through an animation using this progress event right here. So right here, when I start the jump animation, he actually lifts off the ground 20% of the way in, and I could change that to make it like halfway through or at the very end or whatever. I could add multiple events or have multiple things happen when each of these percent points in the animation is reached. I could have additional actions, so you know, one at 20%, another something else happens at 75%. You know, lots of possibilities with this. Progress event actually doesn't even have to be tied to an animation. Just anything that happens over a duration of time, you can just call these Unity events at any point within them. The vision on the AI finds characters by when they enter this vision box, and it currently doesn't deal with line of sight, but that would just be another component that you could add in if you wanted to implement that. And actually, that's probably something I will get to at some point. If you wanted to change its the range that it sees things, or maybe it always knows about the player, again, it's just all in these little components. You don't have to completely change your logic. Because of this kind of design, you could just use what you need and leave what you don't for any project that you want to work on, and have at least a starting point so that you can focus on what makes your game unique rather than the things that are just true across lots of games. Again, all of this is available on GitHub, so if you search for GitHub Will9371, that's my username, and character template, that is the project. You can just clone it right here, or just go through and just pull individual scripts. One thing I ask is that if you're working with it and you find it helpful, and you create some additional general purpose scripts in a similar kind of style as to what I'm making in each of these, that you upload those and add them to the project for everyone else to use, so that if we get a bunch of people contributing, then eventually this will go from just something that's kind of a nice little base to something that becomes really robust. If you're looking through this and it doesn't quite make sense, or there's some part of it that you're not quite understanding, feel free to just drop a comment in this video asking about it. And so let's say you really want to know how the mouse dragging works in the first-person flying scene, then yeah, just ask about that. If it's a simple question, I'll just answer it in the comments. If it's a little more involved and I'm able to get to it, then I may create a follow-up video and make this part of a series, setting up the context of that particular component, you know, what problem it's exactly solving, and then go through the code step by step, explaining how exactly it works. That is all for now. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.